Hello, and thank you again. Welcome to ATO Unfiltered. We are here with a friend of mine, and we're going to talk about some things that are so important, especially the story that we have to share today is very special. I am your host, Xochitl Rodriguez, and I am so happy to introduce you to a colleague and a friend, a businesswoman, so many things. Dawn Peters is here with us today. Thank you for being here in this episode of ATO Unfiltered. And tell us a little bit about what you do right now, just a little bit. And then I really want to get into your story because I know it's very, very powerful for our audience.
Yeah. So thank you for having me. This is just such a blessing in itself, having the opportunity to be here. So right now I work for Woodland Springs Hospital as a part-time therapist, and I'm also the business development rep.
Business development rep. Oh, that's a whole other episode that we can do on that. So I know we spoke a little bit before the episode about your story and how significant your story applies to what it is that you do today. So can you tell us, can you share, and we have the privilege to listen to your story. Can you share your story with us? I know it's going to get vulnerable. You might want to get some, Kleenex around or something, but it gets personal. And because what we do, it's so significant in helping people, but, and it comes from a story, and I know that. Yeah. So tell us how you got to be Dawn Peters today.
Oh, but yes, it really dives deep into my heart. I think where it initially started was being raised by a single mom who worked her tail off in everything that she did. So, and then I don't even know.
It's okay. So I mean, the story with your mom being a single mom, and you seen her work, and you seen her, kind of always showing up, kind of thing.
Yeah,
I can imagine that's something that obviously influences you today. But tell us about what you saw, how you felt growing up. What is it that how's your story made? Because like I said, I know that from the story that you've shared, that you have overcome a lot of things. And it started with being raised by a single mom.
Yeah. So, like I said, being raised by a single mom, just seeing her work so hard and make, sacrifices for me throughout her career, from a waitress to a nurse now. And then, but also during that time, just giving back to the community and helping kids who were just identical to me, that were less fortunate material-wise, but I had the love that a lot of kids didn't have. And so, but I mean, we were often bringing kids in and feeding them. And, now as a social worker, I was like a young social worker, inviting friends over. And so, but with that, there were some difficult times and poor choices. And the things that I kind of seen developed, kind of put an identity that was very self-destructive. I didn't have a father, so I think that was that definitely changed my outlook on men, the instability, and so not knowing how to relate to other children that did have that relationship with a mother and a father, and being raised in that type of dynamic. So, and then just going throughout the years, my mom was married several times. And so, that dysfunctional relationship and not having that stability was also kind of created just a lack of self-respect in myself. And again, just leading me down a road of self-destructive behavior.
So there's a couple interesting things, and I know you're a therapist, and I'm a therapist too. So we might, do a little therapy here. Although this is not therapy for our audience, I just want to make sure that we understand that. But you said that you're single mom, and you what is it? Was it just you? You had siblings at your
I'm an only child.
Only child.
Only child.
So your mom would bring in kids to your house.
Yeah.
To feed them, to clothe them, to what, like?
Yeah. So I grew up in Houston, and we lived in a poverty-stricken neighborhood, and so we were latchkey kids, so our parents were working, and I don't recall ever carrying the key around my neck, but I think it was in my backpack.
Yeah.
And, we just kind of created forts in our backyard, and, we just loved on each other from afar, and probably providing some poor therapy at a very young age.
Yeah.
But so it was, I think, all the single parents kind of depended on each other, and probably in a very dysfunctional way, but also in a healthy way that they just became family. That they took turns. The ones that worked at night kept the kids during the day. And so we just kind of helped each other.
And in that dysfunction, though, your mom still set the example of support system.
Yeah.
However healthy or unhealthy it was, or, how it influenced you in your life. But definitely, I feel like that has a huge mark on, what you ended up doing, which is what you do now, but just helping out and just finding that support. And we have to remember that when we all just trying to survive.
Yeah.
Your mom, I know that's the best that she could have done at that time, whether it was the best that should have been provided to you, or, having a stable marriage or something, having, things like that. But that was the best she could do. And and she did it for you and also for the other kids.
Yeah.
So
a lot of memories that are also brought back of, we would be the gathering home. We would be the home where there was, I think we had just that love, where we played board games, and we had, turn off all the lights and hide and go seek in the home. And so even though there was a lot of working and, absentee of the family, there was that fulfillingness of bringing everyone together. And so a sense of normalcy, but also in a way that wasn't normal, I guess, would be.
But being present.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the word love twice.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that we understand that as parents, single moms, if you're listening to this, it's not so much about what you can provide in material stuff, but it's just the presence and the love. And that's, and I think that speaks, huge amounts to how, the turning point. And then we're gonna go to the rest of the story, right? But I think that's just the love has that power.
Yeah.
So
100%.
Right. So, you admitted that you had some instability at your home. There's, marriages, or men going in and out of your house and stuff like that. And so and we learn what we see.
Right.
So you saw that instability, and maybe, and we absorb that kind of lack of presence, lack of responsibility, lack of accountability, lack of, things like that. And you're mentioning some self-destructive behaviors. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah. So I think that I searched for that love in men, that I immediately fell in love with my, who would have become my husband. And I wanted family so much that all I seen was a man, he had a mother, a father, he had what looked from the presence, a complete of what I wanted. Yes. And so, ignoring all the red flags, I was like, this is it. This is what I want. So of course I fell in love with someone who just treated me not well, not like a woman needed to be treated. And
your standards were probably like the bottom. No.
Yeah, even though I thought they were like top notch. And, so, here comes infidelity and just being able to just deal with that and say, it's okay. I have the home. On the outside, the house is beautiful, but in the inside, there's so much destruction.
Oh, yes.
And I had two of the most amazing kids. And so I decided to stay in that relationship for 13 years with hurt and pain. And little did I know, although I seen where I was keeping my family together, it was causing more unhealthy identity within my own children, teaching my son how to treat a woman in a not healthy way, and teaching my daughter that this is the way a man loves you. So I was going through this pattern. Although I was married, it was the same pattern of my childhood. So it was interesting that I changed the perspective that now I'm married and I'm not with, the other side, but I've changed it. But it's still exactly the same picture. Yeah.
And it's difficult to see it when you're inside. Because you're justifying like, well, I do have a family.
Exactly.
I do have support. I do have this and I do have that. But then when you really look internally and you cry yourself to sleep and things like that, it's like, is this really what I want? Is this really healthy? Am I really happy?
Yeah.
Am I setting a good example for my kids?
Right. Yeah.
So you stay in that marriage for 13 years.
Yeah. And so after 13 years, I finally said, I've had enough. And, I have a very strong faith in the Lord. And one of the things I just asked God if I could get out. And I knew it was time. There was a sense of calmness that said, you can leave. And there, all throughout the 13 years, I just felt this struggle. And then that was the only time that I just had this release off of me. And I can't explain it unless people that have went through that know that sense of freedom. It's like you've been carrying this heavy weight, like a backpack turned around, and you're carrying it, and it is all of a sudden just lifted off. And so I was able to break through. And so, but
scary step.
Yeah, it's very scary because I'm out on my own now. And no amount of child support will ever help that.
No.
No matter what people say, you're doing everything alone. And so, and mind you, I've been with the same person from 17 years old is when I got pregnant, to 30.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, that's your identity in your 20s. You're trying to figure out who you are. And at that time, I'm a single mom. I'm a newly married wife. I am going to college. I have got my bachelor's degree. I got my associates and my bachelor's. And then now I'm 30 and I'm like, I have no idea who I am. My identity was in being a wife, and now that was gone.
Right.
So now my identity is in being a mother of two teenagers and trying to make sure that they continue to have a normalcy to their life. And I think that was the most important thing, was making sure that they knew that they were loved, and it had nothing to do with them. And and so I think that was my main goal.
So I'm gonna pick on something because I think it's very important, especially for young women that have children, that have small children in their marriage. They feel caged in. They feel that backpack, the weight. But you still chose to go to school, get an associate's degree and a bachelor's degree. What, like that? Those are the things that are like, for me, they're it's so important because it's key to that, to, propelling you to your future. So what made you, even though you had the perfect or the normal marriage and the normal family, what got you to, you know what, I'm going to get this just because. Yeah.
So I don't even know if this is really healthy or not, but my mother taught me from a very young age that you can only depend on yourself. And even though I was married and my husband had a good job, I knew that I needed to make sure that I always had a backup plan. And I'm working on that right now to be be able to step out and not so be dependent on myself. But I knew that I needed to at that time.
Yeah.
And I think it's really important for us to be able to stand on our own feet. But I also wanted that sense of accomplishment. And so, and I think it's ingrained in me from a very young age is I've always wanted to help people. I mean, I wanted to be an attorney, but I didn't want to be an attorney to make money. I wanted to be an attorney to help people that didn't know how to navigate the judicial system, who needed people to stand up for them when they didn't have a voice.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because even though that I wasn't able to fulfill being attorney, I'm literally doing that today.
Yeah.
I'm navigating and sharing resources and helping people that don't have the voice. And so that's why I did go to college, because there's something in us that does want to help.
Yeah.
And I knew that I wanted to do that. It's so fulfilling.
It doesn't matter if it takes the normal 4 years, if it takes 20 years, it doesn't matter. It's just the sense of accomplishment, the sense of knowing that healthy or not healthy marriage, you can still, because your spouse might need, your partner might need the support, or something like that. So you can still stand on your own, but also realizing that you need a support system.
Yeah.
So that's very important too. Okay, so you're out of marriage now. You have a bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
You have 2 teenage kids.
Yeah. And now navigating the single life, single dating world.
Yes.
So in your 30s. And so that was an interesting, and doing that every other weekend when you're sharing. And so anyway, so I didn't know what that was either. And again, I didn't know who I was. And I think that's literally my whole story, is throughout the whole process of not knowing who I was. And so in my 30s, that not knowing who I was led me down a very dark path of destruction. And so, because I was a full-time mother, that was stripped away from me. Now I'm a part-time mother. Even though I had them through the week and every other weekend, it was still, they weren't with me 24/7. And so another thing just stripped away. And so I think when you put all of your eggs in a basket of your identity rather than knowing who you are, I think that literally messes with you, because when I work with women nowadays, that's one of the things we don't know who we are, because we give, but we're forgetting to give to ourselves. And so even though I did go to school and I, mastered all of this, but I feel like I've always lived in survival mode. Like, what's next? And so when all of those things, your husband stripped away from you, your children are stripped away from you, now I've had to slow down and be like, oh, it's me, but I don't know who I am. So then I got lost in the drinking and dating and falling again back into that, poor relationships. And so if you don't know who you are and you're continuing to reach out to just be loved rather than loving yourself, you're not going to get healthy love. So with that, within, just to share a little bit, is I opened the door to something dark, what I consider is drinking. What started off is just casual drinking turned into every other night drinking. But I was functioning. I held down my career. I kept my kids. I lived this, again, a beautiful home, but the inside was hurting.
The inside of you was hurting.
Yes. So I held down a job. I had great friend relationships, and but it slowly just started falling. So, yeah.
And we numb, I mean, alcohol or any substance that is used to numb
Yep.
and to obscure, and it kind of avoids facing the mirror.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't have to face the mirror because I have a drink in my hand.
Yeah.
So,
And that's what I would do at night. No one knew I was doing it.
mm-hmm.
And so I could hide it.
Mm-hmm.
And then also I wasn't alone.
Mm-hmm.
Lonely nights are the enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And just being able, just sitting there, you know, when your kids are gone and now you don't have a husband and you're just like,
Yeah.
let me numb this.
Yeah.
Because it's just easier.
And nobody's watching.
Nobody's watching.
Yeah.
And I can just go to sleep.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And hide it.
Yeah. And then the next night I go to work and it's the same cycle all over. Little did I know it was leading into a very, very unhealthy, I was a path of destruction.
Mm-hmm.
And so, then I think the turning point was basically getting into a relationship that I thought was the end all. Mm-hmm. And of course, he left. Mm-hmm. And then I had to take a step back and say, out of everything that's happened over these last 10, 15, 20 years, who is the one person that's the common factor? Mm-hmm. And it was me. Mm-hmm. So whether it was, you know, just being pushy, being aggressive, or not knowing how to treat people respectfully, kind of that self of it's about me and not about you, because that's all I knew was to just go in survival mode, and it wasn't like it's every relationship deserves 50%, 100%, and working together, you know. And so I took about I knew it was time to change.
Mm-hmm. So I saw yourself in this pattern, of destruction, about relationships or falling, you know, and this behaviors, and then you're like, okay, it's not the people around me. It might be the people around you, but I'm the common denominator. I need to make a change.
Everyone keeps leaving. Mm-hmm. Why? Mm-hmm. And I'm not a horrible person. But I don't think people love you to a point.
Right.
You know, and at first I didn't understand that. I was like, how dare someone leave me? You know, and I think that's very self-righteous.
Yes.
You know,
I think people love you to the point of where you love yourself.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Yeah.
So people keep leaving, and you know, I face abandonment and stuff like that. So it's like, well, people keep leaving. It's like, oh, because I keep abandoning myself.
Yes.
And so it's very, you know, enlightening, sad. You know, you get angry, you get all the feelings when you face up with something like that.
Yeah.
So how did you turn it around?
So
that's the power right there.
I fell on my knees and asked for help. Mm-hmm. And literally everything I've done was just poured out in front of me, and not in a very condemning way, but as a conviction of, let's fix this. Let me show you how we can do this together.
Yes.
And so I became very involved in church groups. I began volunteering, and you know, there's studies on gratitude, and there's studies on giving back, and actually the studies show that you actually, when you give, you're actually receiving more than what you're giving. And so I just find that so fascinating, because I just fell into that, what I was initially, what the Lord had put in me to give back and help others. And through that, a healing came. The healing came.
So much power.
Yeah. And so that was about a year that I just worked on myself. And then within the next year, I remembered in my 30s, I wanted to get my master's degree. And it just at that time, I was going through the divorce and all those things. And I was like, I couldn't do it. And so, but there's always a perfect time and it does come. You just got to jump. You got to do it.
See the opportunity and jump to it.
You just got to do it. And I did it. I got accepted. I completed my master's in 10 months. I wrote my group, my group, oh gosh, what's it called? Where you, I can't think of what it's called, but anyways, it's just a paper and a group curriculum. That's what it's called.
Okay.
I wrote my group curriculum, and the school that I went to, actually, the dean, the professor of that of the program called me and said, "Can we use your group curriculum for the future students of an example of how to write a group curriculum?"
Wow.
And this group curriculum was about empowering women and how to find our identity within ourselves. So again, it's just another stepping stone of just how we can enlighten people while we're working on ourselves too.
Yeah.
And so
we're all on a journey here.
Yes. Yeah, I always say it is definitely, I take that, quote is, it is a journey. It's not a destination. And every day give yourself grace. And so I finished that in 10 months and then here we are now, a year later, I am now a therapist at the hospital and I love groups. I love giving back. I love hearing the stories. I love to see how people come to us at Woodland Springs and how they come in a very vulnerable time. And then you see them walk out and they just thank you. And little do they know, they probably taught me way more than I gave to them.
Yeah.
And I take so much of that, of what I'm taught, because I think that we can learn so much from other people if we just listen and quit talking so much. Ironically, we're on a podcast.
Oh my God. Yeah. But it's just, this is different.
Yes.
But listening has such power. Yeah. Because you get to hear people's stories. Yeah. It's what, and the listen, like we have the audience are listening to this story. Yeah. And so I wanted to kind of, if you give us a brief, because I know people struggle with substance. Yeah. And so what helped you get out of that aspect of your life? And then we'll talk about Woodland Springs and how your work today helps reach out and empower women. Yeah. But tell us about the recovery part.
Yeah. So I actually, it's kind of an interesting story. I just prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed that God would take that away from me. Oh, sorry.
We need a moment.
Oh. And because it's so hard, it's so hard. Oh, sorry. So I'm going to cry. And when it's not being taken away from you, you just sit there and you're like, what's wrong with me? I've never had this issue. Sorry. So I was in Bryan College Station working as a business rep, went into a hospital, and I was coming down an elevator, and I called this guy my angel because it was just me and him, and he just started talking to me. He's like, where do you work? And I told him. And he said, have you ever heard about Celebrate Recovery? And I was like, no. And he said, so we are, we help people who have hurts, hang-ups, and habits. And I was like, oh, I fall in all three of those categories. And
you mention anything to this guy?
No. I just told him, I work for a psychiatric hospital, and he's like, oh, well, let me share you a little bit what I do. And I was like, oh, wow, I fall into all those categories. And he's like, yeah, you ought to look it up. It's a great organization, and or, whatever it is. And then, so I went home that night and immediately Googled it, and come to find out it was actually being held at one of the churches that I used to attend. Mm-hmm. And I had attended that church for over 3 years, never knew about Celebrate Recovery. Fast forward 2 years later, I used to work with this guy that is from my hometown that runs a Celebrate Recovery. Mm-hmm. Never, ever heard of this. Mm-hmm. And so I started attending Celebrate Recovery. And I think that was the beginning. Mm-hmm. Being around others who were going through the same thing, saying what you're going through is normal. Mm-hmm. And the feelings that you're having are normal. Mm-hmm. You're not, an alien walking this earth by yourself. Mm-hmm. There's people who are struggling in all types of addiction, mm-hmm. not just this.
Right.
And we all struggle. And being able to say, like, I know how you feel. Mm-hmm. I think that was really the turning point, is saying, like, I'm normal. Mm-hmm. Like, I struggle like everyone else, mm-hmm. and people are struggling. Mm-hmm. And so
we're all hurting.
We're all hurting. And being able to remove that mask, mm-hmm. I think is where it's essential of helping other people. Mm-hmm. And so that was the beginning of my healing. Mm-hmm. And then I found a very small church group that loved me where I was, mm-hmm. and helped me through the process. Mm-hmm. And so, and then I think the final healing, it really, when I seen a sense of full healing, was being able to talk about it. Mm-hmm. Because I was so ashamed. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And for well over 3 years, I was still ashamed. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't talk about it. Mm-hmm. And so I think that was my final, like, I've overcome this healing. Wow. And everyone's journey is different, of course. So, but I think when I'm surrounded by others who have struggled in whatever form of addiction, it seems like it's a common factor of being set free, being able to talk about it, being able to say, this is normal, mm-hmm. and every day's a struggle. Mm-hmm. Everybody's journey looks different. Mm-hmm. And then another key thing is the common area of people, places, and things. Mm-hmm. I no longer go into places that are going to tempt me. Mm-hmm. I have to know.
You make that choice every day.
Every day.
Today.
I will not go into to those establishments or yeah. I mean, that's what I walk in.
You said places, people,
places, and things. Uh-huh. Yeah. So, and that was one of the things I had to do. I had to change my environment. I lived right next to a liquor store. So the same drive that I took every day, I had to take the opposite drive. Mm-hmm. So I had to change every part of my life until I finally was like, okay, I'm free of this. But yeah, every day I was very self-aware and had to work on that.
Yeah. I mean, I think this part of your story is so powerful. I mean, we see it's still emotional for you.
Yeah.
It's still emotional. Yeah. But I think the power is that you prayed. You pray for people of faith, and then you took action.
Yeah.
God sent you a messenger.
Yeah.
Here it is. Yeah. He didn't know that message was for you or not, but then you took it for you, and then you went home and you researched and you attended and you made the effort with shame or no shame. With hurt, and you still went and you did the work. And that I think, and you have to make a choice every day. And I think, speaking to you before, I know that was something that I was very much impacted with, because he spoke to me, because I feel like, am I the only one that has to make a choice every day to do the right thing, or to make the right choices, to go work out, to, eat healthy, or, to not have a drink and stuff like that. But it's every day. And when you said, I was like, I'm not alone. I'm not alone.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I'm not recovered.
Mm-mm.
It just means it's a process. It's a journey. And it's like you said, it's not a destination. It's a journey. And yeah, I think that has so much power. So tell us about what you do at Woodland Springs. What is Woodland Springs, first of all, for our audience, if they're looking for help, if they're looking for resources and things like that. Tell us a little about Woodland Springs and how they can reach out to you.
Yeah. So Woodland Springs Hospital is a behavioral health hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So we help individuals struggling who have 13 and up, who struggle with mental health and addiction. And so it's right up my alley of everything that I've went through. And so we provide inpatient services, and then we also have outpatient. So, and one of the things I love about our hospital is we know the importance of when someone comes in the hospital that discharge starts at admissions. So not that we're looking to hurry up and get them out of the hospital, but that from the beginning, we are working on, okay, what is the next step? And it goes with my story, like you're going through the next step and you're always looking for, how can I continue down this journey? So what we do is once they come in, they go through inpatient if they meet the criteria. And so they're there 7 to 14 days. Once they're getting close to discharge, then we start talking about partial hospitalization, which is a step down from inpatient or intensive outpatient. And so PHP, which is partial hospitalization, is 20 hours of therapy a week. So it's pretty intense. Wow. Yeah. And then IOP is 9 hours of therapy a week. So the PHP is about 2 weeks and the IOP is about 5 weeks. So although it's 20 hours of therapy, it's only 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then once they go through that continuum of care, the next step is making sure that we connect them with someone in the community. And we want to make sure that this is the right fit for them. If it's a female that wants a male therapist, we make sure that we match that. And that's my job, is to connect with therapists out in the community that we're going to partner with, or different there. And also there's another higher level of care. So if they're in our hospital and they're there for addiction, but they need to go to a residential treatment center, then that's where I also have those resources too, that I connect within the community. And because they're gonna leave the inpatient where they have their stabilization, where they're stabilized, they're no longer a threat to themselves or others. They went through detox and all of that, and now they can go to a 30, 45-day residential treatment center. So, and I think that's where, like I said, that's what I love about our hospital is our therapists, our discharge planners, and our doctors just know the key of that continuum of care. Because we don't want to see people going in and out of the hospital. We want them to get well. Yes, we want them to get well. We want them to be on this journey where it's like, now I'm on the journey of recovery, and how can I help other people with my story and my testimony? And then with that, that's what I do throughout the week. And then I am one of those therapists that I'm blessed to be able to be that inside voice, running groups as well.
And what a blessing that you have a story that you can feel. I mean, as therapists, we're trained on empathy and things like that, but you actually walk the walk.
I walked in those shoes.
Yes, you walk in those shoes. So I am sure that you make an impact on each person that crosses your path.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. Powerful story. Thank you guys for listening to. If you feel like this story resonates with you or can resonate with anybody, please share it. Subscribe to the channel. But more importantly, if you feel alone, let's tell you that you're not alone. If you're suffering from addiction, if you're suffering from mental health, behavioral health, if your life's just, you just feel caged, you feel like you're not put together, anything that you feel, just reach out for help. Either Woodland Springs, I know we have Aspire, Thrive, and Overcome here. or just any mental health professional. There's also, what's the number, 211 for help? No, it's 811. 811 for mental health help. You can also reach out there, but you're not alone. You're not alone. And there's actually people out there that have gone through your path and that are willing to do the work with you. Thank you so much for listening today. We hope you enjoy. Please subscribe and share.